This is the story of popular entertainment.
From the music hall era of the 19th century...
Don't you know Mrs. Kelly?
Through the golden age of variety.
To the working men's clubs of the 1950s.
I love it. I'm Frank Skinner, a comedian.
And I'm Suzy Klein, a music presenter.
Together we plan to celebrate our rich entertainment heritage by finding out all we can about the great acts of the past, and yes, by having a go ourselves.
It's harder than it looks.
So join us now as we go back to a time when Britain really did have talent. By the 1930s, live entertainment was bigger and glitzier than ever before.
Variety had arrived, and the British public showed that they liked their entertainment, well, varied.
And with the Second World War on the horizon, we were about to find ourselves in need of escapism, solidarity, and a good old laugh more than ever before.
In this programme, Suzy and I will be taking on two superstars from this era, although from very different worlds.
I'll be doing not one, but three performances, single-handedly recreating all-female American group, the Andrews Sisters.
Till I come marching home.
Oh, show off. I'll be recreating a British national treasure who said himself, "There'll never be another." Max Miller.
Yeah, best of luck with that, Frank.
Fish and chips, bra straps, rock. And Variety would face its biggest challenge yet, the birth of telly. It's September 1939. In number 10 Downing Street's Cabinet Room, Prime Minister Neville Chamberlain addresses the nation. You can imagine what a bitter blow it is to me that all my long struggle to win peace has failed. Britain was at war with... Line? Germany.
Amid the turmoil, one of the first things the government did was close all the theatres.
But that didn't last long. Only 12 days, in fact. Not even Hitler's nightly air raids could stop people going to the Variety Theatre. And they were willing to risk life and limb to get there. It's 1940 and I'm going out for the night. I'm feeling...
You'd better run, Frank. 7 London Variety theatres were bombed during the Blitz.
If this was 1940 and we were going out to see a show, we would have our gas masks, wouldn't we, for a start-off?
Yes, we would have our gas masks. We're in our seats, the show starts, fantastic. The air raid siren goes off. Anybody who doesn't want to stay in the theatre can leave. But for the most part, audiences did just stay. They would have remained in their seats, and then the show would have carried on as normal. The catch was that if you stayed, you were probably there for the long haul, because once the bombs started falling, you know, people didn't want to walk around outside.
Is it true that the blackout Vera Lynn gig, that story?
Yes, it is true.
So tell me what happened.
She started singing and all the lights went out and the power went in the theatre. So she went to the side of the stage where there was a microphone, battery-powered microphone, waiting for her. And she brought that on, continued singing. And the audience members then used their torches that they'd bought to provide the lighting.
I find that quite a moving story.
It really captures something about the sort of DIY spirit of World War II. You know, we are going to keep going against the odds, even if the audience have to supply the lighting.
Well, I tell you, what I'd like to try and do is recreate the sort of Blitz audience experience, just to see how it felt. So, cue air raid siren. Vera wasn't available, but Suzy's agreed to do her bit for the war effort.
There'll be bluebirds over Just you wait and see. There'll be love and laughter and peace ever after tomorrow, when the world is free.
Yeah. Do another one, Vera. The doors are locked.
That's your lot, Frank. I've got places to be.
Fair enough, Vera. I'm sure we'll meet again.
We'll meet again. Don't know where.
Vera Lynn certainly had a busy war. Her radio show, Sincerely Yours, made her a star both home and abroad, and fans were desperate to see the sweet singer of sweet songs in real life. But what was it that made Vera the most successful female entertainer of her era?
The sorts of songs she sang seemed to resonate with the particular concerns of the wartime moment. You know, lots of romantic songs and sentimental songs that had a nostalgic feel. And I think, again, you know, this was a time where families were being torn apart, and somehow she seemed to provide a way for people to express some of these emotions.
Is it true that the authorities weren't quite sure about Vera Lynn?
In 1942, this was shortly after her radio show began, there was a massive explosion in the newspapers after a retired lieutenant colonel published a very inflammatory letter accusing Vera Lynn of singing soppy, sentimental rubbish. And in fact, he even suggested that the reason Britain was doing badly in the war at this point was because soldiers were spending too much time listening to her effeminate, sentimental songs and not listening to actual, you know, proper marching fare. The BBC set up a dance music policy committee, which was also known as the Anti-Slush Committee.
Oh, OK, anti-slush,
As in anti, like, soppy, sentimental, Vera Lynn type music, to vet performers to make sure that they were singing in a suitably virile style. There'll be bluebirds over the white.
It's hard to think of how Vera's songs as controversial. The White Cliffs of Dover was to become a sort of wartime national anthem. Any amateur ornithologist will tell you there are no bluebirds off the coast of Kent. Incredibly, the song was written by two Americans. It was very much their perception of Britishness, but that didn't seem to bother the crowd singing along in the variety theatres and the naffy halls. They thought it was as British as apple pie. Pork pie. But the Americans were about to really muscle in on our entertainment.
With the war over, everyone wanted to let their hair down.
This was a boom time for the theatres. Whilst rationing continued, there was little else to spend your money on. So why not go out for the night?
In London, the famous Palladium was looking to the future. And in 1945, it got a new manager, Val Parnell. He decided it was time to shake things up and looked across the Atlantic for some new talent. British audiences loved it. Music hall and variety had always welcomed foreign acts, but this insatiable appetite for all things American was new.
I'm stepping out with my baby, can't go wrong, 'cause I'm in right.
So what made us Brits so obsessed with everything American?
I think in the wake of the war, where there's been so much death, destruction, deprivation, I think there's a real sense that this is the new world. This is something that's vital, that's vibrant, that's optimistic, that's forward-looking, that's fresh. And I think, you know, for British audiences, that injection of energy, that vitality is something that they really respond to.
Soon, Americans were appearing at the top of the bill. In February 1948, the American film star Danny Kaye drove audiences wild at the Palladium. The venue was sold out for 6 weeks, and unsurprisingly, it wasn't long before other US acts ventured across the pond. But what was happening to all our British stars?
The legend would be that it's really tough times for them, that they're being squeezed out by, you know, Danny Kaye and then the Andrews Sisters and then this whole slew of people, Sinatra, whoever, you know, Nat King Cole, who come over. But if you actually look at the playbills for all of those acts, they've always got British acts on the undercard. So Val Parnell's argument would always be, I'm bringing over the people who will fill the theatres, who I know there's a demand for, and if there are British acts of that calibre, they will also be the headliners.
You mentioned the Andrews Sisters, an act I have loved since I was very little. How did they capture the British imagination?
And I think you've got to start with the music. They were formidably good at what they did. You know, they had three-part harmonies sung in this incredibly sort of strong, powerful way that made them sound a bit like a sort of horn section in a swing band.
He was a famous trumpet man from my Chicago way. He had a boogie style no one else could play. He was a top man at his craft.
That swing jazz music was the most popular music form on both sides of the Atlantic in the 30s and 40s.
He's a boogie-woogie bugle boy of Company B. A toot, a toot, a toot-a-da, a toot, it blows the day to the
That sort of zest that they bring to their recording work, and you know, when they're on film and when they're on stage, you know, is infectious, you know, globally infectious.
He's a boogie-woogie bugle boy of Company B.
Greetings from the Andrews Sisters. I'm Patty.
I'm Maxine.
And I'm Laverne.
The Minnesota-born Andrews Sisters became one of the most successful female groups of all time. In July 1948, they arrived for a month-long engagement at the London Palladium, and they were a massive hit, treating audiences to hour-long encores. For my final performance, I've decided to go all out and try and recreate the unique sound of this legendary group. I have always loved that American sound, the music of the 30s and 40s, the music that my grandparents used to listen to and that they played me as a kid. So I've sort of set myself this challenge, which is that I want to try and do all three vocal lines in an Andrews Sisters number, because I have this theory that part of the reason they were so good is because their vocal cords, the biomechanics of their singing voices, were so similar. And if I can somehow use my voice and do three different musical lines, maybe I'll get somewhere close to finding that blend that the Andrews Sisters got. I don't hope to have a shred of the musicianship, but I think it's going to be a really fascinating experiment.
By the early 1950s, US megastars like your fancy Andrews Sisters were regularly topping the bill. I can imagine how annoyed the homegrown talent must have felt.
Sorry, Frank.
Of course, no performer would have dreamed of airing these grievances on stage. Well, maybe one performer.
Max Miller was Britain's most popular comedian for decades, and as one of the highest-paid variety stars of his era, he generally had little to grumble about. But at the 1950 Royal Variety performance, he was sharing the bill with American Jack Benny, who had been allotted 20 minutes. Poor old Max had just 6.
So Miller begins his act. It's going well. He starts to ad-lib. He starts to abandon his rehearsed routine. Time goes on. Pretty soon, the stage manager is in the wings. So Miller turns to him and says, "Hey, the others have had their chance, let me have mine." And then he turns to the crowd and says, "The Americans do." Big cheer. He's absolutely got them. He walks into the wings. Val Parnell stands there, furious. "Miller," he says, "you'll never work for me again." Of course, Max, by this stage, is a big star, very established. "Sorry, Val," he says, "you're £70,000 too late."
I fell in love with Mary from the dairy, but Mary wouldn't fall in love with me. Down by an old
Miller was one of the first recognisably modern stand-ups. His live performance was the key and influenced generations to come, me included. Trying to recreate his act is a hard task, and it's going to require a bit of homework.
We slipped and we both fell.
In the 1939 film Hootsman, Max played a comedian called Harry Hawkins. It was a wonderful excuse for him to reproduce his own act on the big screen.
I went to Blackpool, and I went round looking for rooms, and I knocked on a door. And the old lady came to the door, a nice lady. A little bit and some more, not quite so much, and then perhaps. And that's all I want, just a little encouragement. She said, what do you want? I said, could you accommodate me? She said, I'm awfully sorry, I'm full up. I said, but surely you could squeeze me in a little back room, couldn't you? She said, I could, but I haven't got time now.
I think the first thing that you know... I think the first thing that you notice about Max Miller is that the audience are leading Max astray. That's what he's trying to put across. That he is, in fact, quite a decent, respectable chap. But they keep encouraging him to be rude.
I like the girls who do. I like the girls who don't. I hate the girl who says she will, and then she says she won't. But the girl I like the best of all, and I think you'll say I'm right, is the girl who says she never does, but she looks as though she... Here, this...
Part of Miller's thing is the classic naughty schoolboy thing. So to be a naughty schoolboy, he needs a class, and he also needs a teacher. That's the dynamic of the naughty schoolboy. So what he does in this, first of all, he goes up to the audience, and you see he gets here that really close. He's leaning in like this because he's kind of... He's confiding in them, but he points out that the manager is in the wing, so he goes and has a look back there. And you see him go back, and then he comes back and leans in again. So he's conspiratorial, which of course the audience love, because now he's the naughty boy, they're the class who love him, but the teacher's always hovering in the background. And physically, he makes that thing. He ends up praying for forgiveness there at this point. It's perfect. There is something intrinsically funny about him. And, of course, like all comedians, I feel I have that as well. But I don't have it the way he has it. So the performance is to try and get to the real core of those funny bones, so the marrow of those funny bones.
Split. Now it'll hurt me, won't it? Good night.
Before we can get on with our acts, we want to pay our respects to some of the performers Max Miller might have bumped into backstage.
Alongside the big stars, Variety had always been full of wacky novelty acts.
They would come and go, but one much-loved act was to enjoy a Variety career spanning 4 decades.
This was the novelty act that never lost its novelty.
Wilson, Keppel and Betty were regulars on British variety bills throughout the 30s and 40s, but incredibly they were still going until 1963, by which time they were almost 70.
Their famous sand dance was a two-handed routine. Presumably Betty decided to sit this one out.
And now we're going to find out if their act still endures today by stepping into their gritty, sweaty sandals.
Oh, Frank.
Oh, hi. Hi, Susan. Really pleased to meet you. How are you? I'm fine, thank you. Hi, Frank.
Lovely.
So,
I bought the sand.
That's a bit ambitious, Frank, but...
What, the sand?
Straight away. It's not easy, but...
Okay.
I think we could put that down when you've learnt it.
Okay.
I'm sorry. The sand dance was a dance on sand. Can you get this shuffling movement? And actually, that's part of the essence of it, is you shuffle backwards, which is what makes the noise of the sand. But actually, it's a tap dance, and it's not easy.
It's so incredibly popular, and it lasted, and you can watch it now, and it's still funny.
I think it is.
Is it just about funny hats?
I think it's partly their expressions. I mean, they do, but they're also very well together. They're also very good tappers. They are very good.
I wish you'd stop saying that, because we aren't.
This is where you come on with the sand, and you just come across the stage, you know, sprinkling the sand.
I'm on the verge of sprinkling.
I'm waiting.
That's so excited I am.
And you now, and you're doing that.
Sorry about that.
It's the other way, yeah. Slow, quick, quick, quick. 5, 6, 7. And we've got to work out. The most important thing is the face, the personality. It's the idea that these two never smile. They had to.
The sand dance was inspired by the 1920s craze for all things Egyptian.
But it was their energy as performers and, of course, their splendid facial hair that was to stand the test of time.
So we're going to go from the top.
They did it for decades and it still made people laugh. It never got unfunny.
No, that's the trouble with words. I think words have got a sell-by date in comedy, but physical funniness like that, I think it does last forever.
I don't know how many hardcore Wilson, Keppel and Betty fans there are out there, but if you're watching, we apologise.
The Andrews sisters, on the other hand, have a dedicated army of followers. And I've enlisted some help to ensure I'm getting the act right.
Do you hear that? That is the unmistakably gorgeous close harmony sound that was championed by the Andrews sisters. I have loved this sound for years, and now I've come here to recreate it on my own. If I'm going to do this and have a go at doing it as well as I can, what for you is what are the key tips you can give me for a really good convincing Andrews sisters?
Yeah.
The right note, thanks. Well, is it going to be impossible to do? Because I waltzed into this thinking, I've always wanted to be the Andrews sisters. I'll be all three of them.
I think if you really concentrate, just concentrate on the line that when we come to teaching you your line, just really concentrate on that.
Just treat each line as part, you know, one of three, part of a group. Don't try and sort of solo anything, because it's just a togetherness and a blend that you're going for.
So the song I really want to sing, it is a song I have loved since I was teeny weeny, is Don't Sit Under the Apple Tree with Anyone Else But Me.
Yeah.
And I chose it because it sounds simple.
Yes.
Bits of it. Okay, how are you going to teach me?
Well, look, the Andrews sisters were very clever with their arrangements. They often passed the tune between harmony lines, but I do start with the tune as the middle part. So perhaps I'll start with teaching you the middle.
The middle part starts with the tune?
The middle part starts with the tune. It's like a musical baton. It does get passed across to the top line. But if I just teach you the middle to begin with. Don't sit under the apple tree. Are you making notes?
Yes.
Okay. With anyone else but me. Me.
Yes.
Anyone else but me. The words are very easy.
That's why I chose it. Anyone else but me.
Anyone else but me, no, no, no.
Ooh, saucy.
Started.
Anyone else but me,
no, no, no. Just do it with your eyebrows, it helps.
That's it.
There you go.
Oh, I like that. Wait, I'm writing. Eyebrow. Okay.
Don't sit under the apple tree with anyone else but me. Anyone else but me. Anyone else but me, no, no, no. Don't sit under the apple tree with anyone else but me. Till That's one line of 3 in an entire song.
Okay. What I'm nervous about is blending. I want to try and have a go.
If I step out, you could be the me.
I shall be the Sarah. Okay, can we do that?
1, 2, 3.
Don't sit under the apple tree with anyone else but me. Anyone else but me.
Don't sack me.
Anyone else but me. No, no, no. Don't sit under the apple tree with anyone else but me till I come marching home. You can see why people fell in love with the sound that these girls made. It's just pure happiness encompassed in one song. And if I could get just a little bit of that, I will feel so thrilled. Thank you so much, all of you. Thank you.
No problem.
Wish me
Well
luck.
done.
Thanks. How are you getting on, Frank?
I'm trying a bit of method acting, and I'm immersing myself in the world of Max Miller. He lived his whole life in Brighton and loved the place, so where better to start? I do think if you want to be Max Miller, you should come to Brighton. Because once you walk around here, the sort of idea of cheekiness is unavoidable. You know, it is the place. It's every seaside postcard you've ever seen. And that's what Max Miller was all about.
I'm known as a cheeky chappy. The things I say are snappy. That's why the pretty
In fact, there is a Brighton chippy dedicated to the cheeky chappy, and it's the headquarters of a loyal band of Max Miller followers. If I'm to recreate Miller's act, I'd better get their approval first. I'm looking for the Max Miller Appreciation Society. Am I in the right place?
Yes. Yeah.
Right, so thank you for meeting up like this. I kind of like it. It looks like we're plotting something. Did any of you see him on stage?
I did, yes, I did.
Oh, OK, when did you see him?
At the Croydon Empire, and then another time I saw him at the London Palladium, and it was his presence. It was his presence. He had those, you know, blue eyes. The ladies all like the blue eyes. The blokes all like the sort of cheeky chappy. He's Jack the Lad, stuff like that. So everybody loved him.
I'm going to go and try and do Max Miller. I'm sure you've seen a few Max Miller impressionists.
There'll never be another.
Why did I choose to be someone who said himself, there'll never be another?
It's true.
Can you give me any tips?
You can learn all the jokes. And you can go on stage and tell them, but you're not going to get the laughs because it was there'll never be another, he said, which is absolutely true. And he had a brilliant sense of timing. Numerous examples of his timing. Now, you know how important timing is in comedy, and Max Miller had it.
The voice, I think, is quite a challenge.
He had a high-pitched voice.
And I need to be up there.
That's it.
Up there, right, OK. Now, one thing I can't do this without, obviously, is the costume. It's the suit. I've always been fascinated by Max's gaudy suit. It was so essential to his act that he even wore it when doing radio. I'm hoping to get my hands on an original. I was wondering if maybe I could borrow the suit.
No.
Oh, OK.
But we've got one in particular that we think you like.
That for Maxie is rather dour and drab. I've come across this one that is much more you, Frank.
OK, and I can borrow this one?
Yes.
Well, that's fantastic. Can I take... You don't want to let go of it, do you? That's
all
lovely.
Yours, and all the best of luck.
Thank you so much. I shall wear it with pride. One of the guys from the Appreciation Society were just telling me that Max kept parrots, which I never knew. And suddenly, the whole thing falls into place. Because if you look at Max in profile, there is quite a beaky face. He wore these brightly coloured things like a parrot. And when he comes on stage, he's sort of, ay. It is. I think this is what happened. I think Max based his act on parrots. So when I do Max Miller, that's what's going to be in my head. Think parrot. But before I can do that, let's return to our story of popular entertainment.
Something had arrived in our living rooms that would turn the world of variety upside down.
By the mid-1950s, 4.5 million of us were tuning into telly. And the arrival of commercial television in 1955 brought a new emphasis on entertainment.
Variety was quickly adapted to the small screen, and Sunday Night at the Palladium gave viewers a seat at a world-famous variety theatre from the comfort of their own home.
Why bother going out at all?
Do you know what it's like to be lonesome?
The grand variety theatres struggled to lure in the punters and were increasingly empty.
How it feels.
And it was no laughing matter. A notice backstage at the Regent in Rotherham warned acts that jokes about the size of the audience will not be appreciated in this theatre.
In this era of economic boom, many ailing variety venues were demolished or converted to make way for shiny new developments.
Some theatres remained places of mass entertainment, albeit of a different kind.
And as well as nightclubs, there was always that 1950s obsession.
The term full house would never mean the same again.
Are the bingo sessions helping the theatre much?
Well, they're not at the moment, but we're hoping during the winter period, when audiences are low, that they will.
Other variety theatres decided to try something new to lure in an audience.
It was all about a more stripped-down form of fun.
Of course, nudity as live entertainment was nothing new. But in the 1950s, theatres nationwide enjoyed performances from the likes of Nudes of the World and We've Got Nothing On Tonight.
Hey, I think I saw that one.
Variety shows were a family affair, somewhere you could take your granny or your children. But nude reviews brought in a somewhat different clientele. Many people saw them as the final nail in the coffin of British variety. One venue, though, mixed nudity and comedy, and it became the unlikely training ground for some of Britain's best comedians. It was called the Windmill.
I'm glad to hear someone was offering Variety's comics a refuge. That's probably where I would have ended up.
There are worse places, Frank. The Windmill was run by impresario Vivian Van Dam, who had the interesting nickname of VD.
It had been famous for its unmoving naked girl since the 1930s. By presenting nude tableau, it avoided the Lord Chamberlain's censorship policy of, if it moves, it's rude.
Today, it's a strip club and sadly devoid of comedians. But I've persuaded Barry Cryer to come to the pub opposite his former workplace to tell me how it all worked.
Well, it is. Dear old place after all these years.
If you were a comic, you were in every show. You clocked in about 11 o'clock in the morning and got yourself ready and everything, did the first show. And of course, they come to see the strippers. The wonderful thing about Vivian Van Dam was he loved comedians, so he could indulge his love of comedians, knowing the customers would come anyway. The Roll of Honour, you know, the Harry Seek and Peter Sellers and everything. And Eric and Ernie apparently got the sack. Bob Monkhouse failed his audition. You couldn't make it up.
Was it a tough crowd to play to because essentially they weren't there to laugh?
In a funny way, I suppose, looking back, you did get more relaxed about it because you thought, they haven't come to see me. So I'll just be laid back and enjoy doing my act.
So how many shows a day? 6 shows a day?
36 shows a week.
You must have been exhausted, but then, it must have made you sharpen up the act and get better and better so quickly.
Well, you hope so. But you learn, as I said, you learn to die with dignity because particularly in the afternoon, the long reaches of the afternoon, there was a marvellous Geordie called Jimmy Edmondson who worked at the Windmill, and he came on one afternoon and a man in the front row just opened a newspaper. And Jimmy said, I see you brought your own comic.
What about the punters? Were they expected to have a certain level of behaviour?
There was a notice, artificial aids to vision are not permitted. And in those days, there would be adverts and things on the back of Sunday papers. And I remember this. There were some binocular glasses, miniature binoculars that you wore like glasses for when you went to horse racing and football and sport. And one guy thought, oh, that's perfect for the windmill, and he was sitting wearing his binocular glasses, and Big Peter, the house manager, who's wonderful, appeared very discreetly. Excuse me, sir, you're out. Got him by the collar and brought him right to the front door here and asked him to leave. And the guy was still wearing these, and he fell down the stairs and broke his leg. I don't know whether he went on to sue the windmill for a broken leg. I doubt it. I doubt it.
The windmill was to continue as a successful training ground for comedians until its closure in 1964.
But beyond liberal thinking Soho, the benefits of nude reviews were less obvious. The family audience had been driven away by the dirty Mac brigade. It wasn't long before the variety theatres were looking to a new crowd for help and a fresh musical craze that would bring them in.
I thought I said I was wearing the check shirt today.
Is them hers?
Now me and my wife went to town.
Skiffle arrived in the UK from America, and by 1956, its fast-paced and exciting sound was bringing in a new audience to the theatres. Teenagers. But would this new crowd appreciate variety in the way their parents had done?
The man who made skiffle popular here was actually a Glaswegian by the name of Lonnie Donegan.
Freight train going so fast. Freight train going so fast. Please don't.
Lonnie's son Peter is keeping the tradition alive and plays with his dad's old touring band. Today he's teamed up with original skiffle king Chas McDevitt, and they've invited us to join them for a bit of a jam.
Brilliant. Fantastic. So I'm going to ask the big question. What is skiffle?
It's a mixture of every kind of style of music. You got country in there, folk, jazz, blues, all mixed into one. And it's one of those kind of things that it's also music that everybody can join in with. Anybody could pick up, like we said, you know, a washboard, a guitar, so long as you learn, you know, 2 or 3 chords, you know, a T-chest bass, and you could just bend it into tune kind of thing, and then you had yourself a skiffle band, and then just learn how to sing.
How did you get into skiffle, Chas?
Well, I started with a jazz band. I was playing at school. I learned banjo, went with a local jazz band. When I moved to London, I joined the remnants of the Crane River Jazz Band, and I was on banjo, and we started featuring the skiffle group in the interval. We were living in Chelsea and playing the coffee bars in Chelsea and eventually in Soho.
What did it feel like when skiffle bands were on things like a variety bill? Because it happens just at the moment where variety's slightly running out of puff.
Professional musicians hated us because we were, a lot of them were working for nothing and not having the technique that the musicians had and taking all the work. So they really hated us.
Did you play shows with ventriloquists and comedians and all that sort of stuff?
Yeah. To start with, yeah. People say that the youngsters killed variety, but we didn't. We gave it a new lease of life. If you put a skiffle group on top of the bill, as they did once in Glasgow for us, we were top of the bill, and they had a skiffle contest. The whole week, the theatre was full of kids. That was the new lease of life for a while. It didn't last too long.
So if we were going to have a go at skiffle, yes, what is our checklist of stuff to remember to really get into the spirit of doing skiffle properly?
A sense of rhythm is all you need.
Yeah. I mean, we'd like to try Rock Island Line. I think we are in the long tradition of skiffle in that we probably know 2 or 3 chords, and that's about it.
That's all you need. You're done. You're in.
Rock Island Line was Peter's dad's smash hit and the song that kick-started the skiffle craze in the UK. What better way to honour it?
3 chords, 3 strings, and it's a tin of ham, which suits you.
Spam guitar!
That's lovely. It's not actually spam. It's what they call a Spanish guitar.
I feel like I'm being submitted.
Yeah. You like to come back to my house for some processed meat?
Oh, God.
Now, there's a chat-up line every time.
OK, Chas, I've brought my washboard. How do I play it?
As it's such a delicate instrument in your hands, we can use a hairbrush. Gives it a nice swishy sound.
And do you bash it as well?
Whatever you like, as long as you've got rhythm.
OK, I'll do my best. Come on, you two, come on.
So no tea chest?
No tea chest this time, though. We're going to go with an upright bass.
OK. You've changed. I got pig on, I got all pig on. Just because I find that very therapeutic. Can I stop you there? Because is that the key your dad did it in?
Yes.
Your dad had quite a voice, if you don't mind me saying. I don't. That's the sort of thing.
Are you feeling the pressure?
No,
Well,
I understand.
I'm feeling the pressure already, and
Give us your Johnny Cash voice.
I can do it as. Yeah, I could do it.
You could do that.
That's an octave. That's what it. Rock Island Line's a mighty good road. Rock Island Line, it's a road to ride. Rock Island Line's a mighty good road. If you want to ride it, gotta ride it like you gotta get a ticket at the station on the Rock Island Line.
There you go.
I may be right and I may be wrong.
No, you're gonna miss me when I'm gone.
And Rock Island Line's a mighty good road. Rock Island Line's a road to ride. Rock Island Line's a mighty good road. If you want to ride it, gotta ride it like you might get a ticket at the station on the Rock Island Line. Oh, ABC, double XYZ.
Cat's in the cupboard, but you don't see me.
Rock Island Line's a mighty good road. Rock Island Line's a road to ride. Rock Island Line's a mighty good road. If you want to ride it, gotta ride it like you might get a ticket at the station on the Rock Island Line.
Hey, it's on the
Rock Island. I love it. I love it. I love it. That sounds good.
I am completely exhausted, but exhilarated. Didn't you love that? It was amazing.
It was really amazing. It's interesting because in the context of this show, I think it's tempting to see Skiffle as the bad guy a bit. There was all this, beautiful variety and quaint British entertainment, and then Skiffle came along from America and took over. But when you actually experience it firsthand, you think, well, how could they possibly compete with that?
1, 2, 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock, rock.
The skiffle craze was huge, but short-lived. It soon gave way to rock and roll and its legions of screaming fans.
And these fans weren't interested in sitting down quietly and watching novelty acts. As theatres put more bands on the bill, traditional variety acts were pushed out.
Rowdy rock and roll was one thing, but the Andrews Sisters act was a bit more polished. I've got a lot of practicing to do, and I'm starting to realise quite how much these girls had going on. Their diction was amazing, they sung with incredible precision, they blended, they put a stress on the same notes at exactly the same point. I've got to remember all that stuff. I've got to do a performance where I do a bit of movement, raise my eyebrow occasionally, a bit of a cheeky smile. I've got to give it all that energy. I'm just surprised the bit I thought would be difficult was learning the notes, learning 3 separate loads of notes, keeping them in my head. That bit has been the easiest bit. Actually turning it into a performance is really quite a bit harder than I expected.
Sounding good, Susie. While you've been swatting up, I'm still on the trail of our entertainment story. With the theatres full of rock and roll acts, variety was looking for a new home. And one place it found was that very British institution, the Working Men's Club. I went to a Working Men's Club once, and the acts were introduced by the entertainment officer, not a performer, and not always totally in tune with what a performer needed by way of an introduction. So he came on and said, we've got a fantastic woman coming on now, great singer, you're going to have a great sing-along. And he said, and I want you to all to give her a really warm welcome. And can I just say that
we have very good toilet facilities here, and the people who think it's clever to nip out and use the car park instead of going to the toilet to save time, we don't think it's clever, and if we find out who you are, you'll be banned. Ladies and gentlemen, Zoe Springsteen. So, she started on the wrong foot, I thought.
The 1950s was a boom time for working men's clubs. As working class communities grew on out-of-town estates, the clubs grew with them. And after a long week at work, everyone was desperate for some entertainment.
I'm not a member. No, go ahead.
I know a bit about working men's clubs from my early career, but I've come to this North London club to find out what they were like in their heyday.
Ruth.
Frank, lovely to meet you.
Well, lovely to meet you. Do you come here often?
I do, as often as I can.
Oh, lovely.
Welcome to the Langdon Club.
Thank you very much. It's nice. Who would book the acts that were on?
The entertainment secretary, the ENTSEC, they would travel around a little bit, maybe go to what used to be called shop windows, where acts who wanted to get in on the club circuit would go and perform, and the ENTSECs would go and book what they thought might be go down well in their own clubs.
What kind of a bill would I expect to see?
A comedian, stand up, you've always got to have a comedian. You might get a duo, often a husband and wife duo, who might work in the factory, a local factory during the week, but got all dressed up to the nines at weekends and strutted their stuff. And occasionally you might get a fire eater.
Okay.
That was always quite exciting. Just don't sit too near the stage.
No, indeed. I guess there was a lot of pressure on the ENTSEC, because if the acts weren't good, presumably the members would turn to him and ask him why he'd booked them.
They would, but they wouldn't need to in a way, because they would just show whether they liked or disliked an artiste right away.
I'm sure they would.
Yeah, they would just carry on talking, drinking, making a lot of noise, sort of saying, when's the bingo starting, and all sorts of things. And the entertainment secretary might flash the lights and say, order, order. It was hard. You had to really prove your worth in those clubs.
Many of those who really proved their worth were stand-ups, particularly those with a talent for punchy one-liners that could grab the attention of a distracted crowd. Stars like Larry Grayson, Marty Caine, and Bernard Manning all got a start in the clubs. Well, I'd like to reinvent the tradition of the shop window, because what I'm going to do, I'm going to make you the entertainment secretary, and I'm going to be the comedian, and I'm going to try and reproduce what I would see as a sort of typical working men's club comedy act. Mm-hmm. And I'm basing it on a guy called Colin Crompton, and I'm going to let you decide whether I get booked or not.
Right, I'll do my best.
I've often been told I look like Colin Crompton, which I've always found a bit disconcerting. Crompton was the club circuit comic who later came to fame in the 1970s on TV shows such as The Comedians and the fictional working men's club, the Wheel Tappers and Shunters Social Club.
Regarding the notice in the gents what says wet paint, this isn't an instruction.
One thing about Colin Crompton, which the modern viewer might be confused by, is that he had one of the most dynamic and elaborate comb-overs I've ever seen in my life. And I think for the modern audience, if you look at him on YouTube or something, you assume that he's done it for comic effect. But that's because you weren't alive in the 70s, when people actually thought this was fun.
There's a copper in a police station. He had a phone call. A guy said there's a horse dropped dead in Nebuchadnezzar Street. So we started filing out his report, the copper, and he said, right, Nebuchadnezzar, N-E-B-U-K, N-E-B-A-C, N-E-B. He said to the sergeant, how do you spell Nebuchadnezzar Street? He said, use your initiative. So the copper went off. Came back half an hour later. He was covered in dirt, all his tunic were ripped, he had blood on his hands. Sergeant said, what happened to you? He said, I've been moving that horse to King Street. I went into town, there were a fella lying flat on his back in the gutter. I said, you all right, mate? He said, yes, I'm fine. I found a parking space. I've just sent the wife home to get the car. 10% of all road accidents are caused by drunk drivers. Now, that means that 90% of all road accidents are caused by sober drivers. They're the one they want to ban. Then we can drive home safely. Thank you very much. You've been a lovely audience. Good night. I haven't felt like this for years. I feel like I've just done a really terrible gig and died horribly. I know you were doing your best to help me.
Wasn't I?
You were quite a tough crowd, though, for all that.
Yeah, well, you told me to be critical.
Go on, fire away.
Well, I think back in the day, you might have got the job. You might have got a booking because it was fairly clean, family-type fun.
It's good to remember what it feels like to absolutely bomb.
You didn't absolutely bomb,
No,
Frank.
but you know what, Ruth's a great leveller.
Variety had found a new home. By 1961, 3/4 of British households had a television set.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Good evening and welcome to the show.
And TV went to great lengths to capture the sparkle and buzz of a night out.
From the stages of variety theatres
to working men's clubs.
I am the music man. I come from down your way. What can I play? What can I play?
So our golden era of entertainment had ended. But the greats of variety had left us a glittering legacy.
and now we're en route to revive that era in our own way.
I think what's particularly beautiful, I think, about the people that we've looked at in this series, the stars of popular entertainment. And I shouldn't be surprised at this, but what I really love is that they were so unashamedly popular. They loved being loved by the masses. I think now that's slightly frowned on. If you get more than 10 million viewers, you must be a bit lowbrow. Nobody cared about that. They just wanted to be loved. They went up there, and the more people that loved them, the better. And they didn't care about the sort of critical or intellectual analysis. They were the crisps and chocolate of the age. They just gave people what they wanted, not what they thought might be good for them.
What you realise is that these are people who created that template, literally created it, that cross-class, cross-generational entertainment, the thing that your granny and your kids could watch and enjoy and laugh at, whether it is the kind of end of the Pier show or a bit of naughty vaudeville or watching Strictly. All of that stuff just wouldn't exist without those people, and they were brilliant pioneers as well as being fantastically great performers. They just sort of had it all. They had charisma, they had balls, they had business nous. They were such go-getters.
As our journey through 100 years of popular entertainment draws to a close, it's time to get into character and give it a proper send-off.
He kept parrots, Max Miller, and I think they had quite an influence on him, because he wears the most outrageously garish costume, and he sort of cackles. So when he comes on, he goes, "I'm here," and I think if you think parrot, I think that's the place to take it. Sort of Randy Parrot.
You do Randy Parrots, I'll do Chintzy Apple Trees.
Surely Randy Parrot is an American singer-songwriter.
May you inhabit the spirit of Max.
Trying to get
I'm
there.
really looking forward to it.
Fish and chips, bra straps, rock.
What if I am? I had two girls come to visit me backstage tonight, and as they left the theatre, I heard one of them say, "Doesn't he dress nice?" And the other one said, "Yes," and so quickly. But Well, when I'm talking. It's rude to interfere. It's like married life. But aren't I nice, lady? I'm not drawn in, I'm all muscle. I'm not drawn in. Oh, don't they ride up this weather? I'm going to sing a song called A Fan Dancer Minus Her Fan. Now, I haven't finished it yet. I've got the beginning and I've got the end. But what I'm after is that middle bit. That's what I want. Shall I start it off, Paul?
You start it off, Max.
I'll start it off and then you'll creep in, won't you? You'll creep in.
I'll creep in, Max.
I'll give you the key. No, well, he might get home before me, you see. I started courting a smashing fan dancer to marry her, that was my plan. Now it's all off with the smashing fan dancer, she fell down and damaged her fan. I said it wasn't finished. The middle bit, that's what I'm after. Oh, that middle bit. Now here's the end part. Do you like the end part, lady? You haven't heard it yet. At last, that poor girl, she's gone home to her mother till her fan is mended or she... Oi! You know, it's people like you get me a bad name. Right, I'll leave you with a little recitation. Roses are red, violets are blue. I know, I've seen them on the clothesline. Good night. So Max Miller bitterly resented American acts coming over. But for me personally, good luck.
Oh, thanks. Whatever, parochial island boy, I'm doing it for the Americans.
Yeah.
I wrote my mother. I wrote my father. And now I'm writing you too. I'm sure of mother. I'm sure of father. And now I wanna be sure, very, very sure of you. Don't sit under the apple tree with anyone else but me. Anyone else but me. Anyone else but me. No, no, no. Don't sit under the apple tree with anyone else but me. Till I come marching home. I just got word from the guy who heard from the guy next door to me. The girl he met just loves to pet and fits you to a T. So don't sit under the apple tree with anyone else but me. Till I come marching home.
Oh, lovely. Of course, the other two sisters are waiting for me in my dressing room.
Oh, time to let go of Max Miller now, Frank.